Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us today. Folks, it's a day we've all been waiting for a very, very long time. 45 becomes 47. In my opinion, he's 45, 46, and 47. If you want to look back at that 2020 election, that was allegedly won by Joe Biden. There's so much on the agenda for President Trump today. There's so much on the agenda for him for the next 4 years. President Trump's set to kick off his day after being inaugurated. Executive order time, 100 executive orders on the docket. Some are even saying 200. President Trump not going to bed until he signs those is what we're hearing. Among them, DEI, keeping men out of women's bathrooms, anchor babies, babies born here in America to illegal parents are not citizens. All common sense things, folks, that would be common sense to you and I, but weren't so common to the Marxist Democrats who have sought to ruin this country over the last 4 years and sought to ruin this country over the last a century, a quarter century. You pick a timeline. They've always been in favor of destruction of this country and the wonderful fabrics that hold it together. But we could all sleep well going to sleep tonight, knowing that Donald J. Trump is back in his rightful place on Pennsylvania Avenue in the great White House with his beautiful family. This was a time that was a long time coming, a long time in the making. And as I say, it's just truly, truly remarkable that we're back here, that I'm at a loss of words. But I want to bring in our guest today who's got some words. He's a brilliant GOP strategist and pollster, John McLaughlin. John, thanks so much for joining us here on this monumental day. I think is probably the best way to describe what we've waited for now here for the last 4 years. At least I have. I know you're really nonpartisan and all that good stuff, but I've been waiting for the last 4 years for the return of Donald J. Trump. John, give me your thoughts as you're sitting here in your hotel room in Washington, D.C., getting ready for the new Trump administration.
Right. And by the way, on a personal note, one person who would be particularly happy today is Lou Dobbs.
Oh, yeah.
Our great friend. And this was the day that he loved, and he knows. And I'm sure his wife, Debbie's very happy. And it's a great day. It's a big change for America. And the thing about the way things are in the country, we took a poll in December that we released, and the vast majority of Americans, 66%, thought the country was on the wrong track. So Biden's leaving Trump a mess. I mean, when you look at it, they said the economy was getting worse, not better, 55-37, 84% negatively impacted by inflation, 48% to the point where they're having trouble making ends meet. So you've got Donald Trump's being sworn in today, and Joe Biden leaving him a big mess, pardoning everybody that was an accomplice on major things. And Donald Trump has to restore the credibility and integrity to the government, and then grapple with high inflation, open borders, crime rising across America, trying to end endless wars. The Gaza terrorists, Hamas, have decided to give back 3 hostages in exchange for a ceasefire so they can regroup and get billions of dollars in aid for America. And they're still holding 91 other hostages or bodies at this point. And Donald Trump has to solve these problems, whether it's Iran, China, Russia, and the Russia-Ukraine war. I mean, he proved that politically he's superhuman in terms of what he did in the political campaign. Nobody's ever come the adversity he's overcome. Nobody's ever withstood a challenge where not only were they trying to beat you in the election, they tried to impeach him twice. They tried to then indict him, take away his wealth, take away his right to free speech, take away his right to be on the ballot, and try to put him in jail to stop him from being president. And thanks to the American people, none of those tactics worked. And he won the popular vote and swept the battleground states. And prior to that, we won the Republican primary in crushing fashion like no other Republican in history has ever done.
And not only didn't it work, John, it completely backfired, in my opinion. I mean, man shot at once, another assassination attempt set up. God only knows how many other assassination attempts there were that we didn't learn about because this government's so damn corrupt. But against all odds, I mean, the man's a convicted felon, was sent down to Georgia, mugshotted, fingerprinted like he was some sort of criminal. And every step of the way, John, he found a way to overcome the adversity of it. It sounds so crazy to say that. It sounds so insane to say that this man had to overcome adversity, but he did. And
Yes.
every time, John, you know this man for a very long time, far more than I know him. Every single time they threw the kitchen sink at him, this man threw back the tub. I mean, like I said, mugshot, he sold mugshots after they came out with his image. They came and said, we don't want cameras in the court. We want cameras in the courtroom. Trump says, yeah, I want them in the courtroom. I want America to see this. Democrats said, no, we don't want them in the courtroom anymore. Get them out of the courtroom. It was time and time again that he beat them at their own game. How do you think Donald Trump feels today of all days?
Oh, I just saw him when he greeted President Biden and Joe Biden at the White House with Melania. He said, "I'm home," and I think there's a sense of relief. I mean, when I listed all the political things, but let me tell you, by the grace of God, he survived 2 assassination attempts and one where they clipped his ear. Yeah. And it didn't change any of the polls. We were ahead. We've been ahead ever since Biden triggered inflation and surrendered Afghanistan. From September 21, you could go to our website, McLaughlinonline.com. You could go back on all the Lou Dobbs shows and your show where we talked about this, where we said Trump was ahead in the popular vote, and he was ahead in the popular vote before he debated Joe Biden and crushed him. He was ahead in the popular vote going into the convention, coming out of the convention. When Biden dropped out, picked Harris to replace him, he was ahead. He was ahead in September. He was ahead after their only debate, and he led all through October. And the American people want change. They look at what's wrong with the country. They look at all the problems we have, and they want him to succeed. And fortunately, we have slim majorities, but majorities where we can get things passed in the House and the Senate, and they have to focus on that now. The challenge is really ahead. We have an opportunity.
You know, the funny thing, John, the silver lining in all this is you often see the Republicans fight. We saw the Republicans fight when it came to the McCarthy ousting. Mike Johnson is speaker. Byron Donalds is speaker. No, it's Jim Jordan is speaker. No, it's going to be Donald Trump as speaker. We saw, perhaps one of the biggest messes we've ever seen in the Republican Party just about a year ago. And, I don't know. I didn't know if it was going to hurt the party. I like to think it didn't. And now I know it didn't. But, at the time I was a little nervous, a little hesitant. We have this big presidential election coming up and the Republicans may be shooting themselves in the foot. But it turns out not. Now, John, for the first time, I think in a long time, at least in my lifetime, we saw fighting happening after this election with the Democrats. Joe Biden clearly didn't want to leave. Kamala pushed him off the cliff. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, all doing the same thing. Apparently, Joe Biden endorsed Kamala Harris so quickly because he knew she was going to get killed by Donald Trump. And he wanted to, say, all right, this is what you guys want. This is what I'm going to give you. And you had told us time and time again, if Donald Trump goes up against Kamala, this was when Joe Biden was in the race. And like you said, go back and listen to this, he would kill Kamala worse than he'd beat Joe Biden. What would you say to Joe Biden? I mean, looking at the poor man, I don't mean poor man, but what he was done to him was completely wrong for any political party. It's not something you see in America.
He brought it on himself. President Trump is right. He's the worst president in history of the United States. He's also the most corrupt. He's probably the most corrupt president in terms of he's pardoning people on his way out that were part of his administration, part of his plots against Donald Trump, that January 6th committee where he tried to stifle political opposition. Joe Biden makes Warren Harding look like Mother Teresa with the corruption from his family, the corruption from the scandals. He pardoned his son to protect the family. It's just, it's ridiculous. There's still unaccountability for I think it was Congressman Comer's committee said there's $25 million in payments to the Biden family from the time he was president until, while he was out of office, et cetera, before he got back into office from foreign governments, China, Romania, Ukraine, or foreign corporations. But it's like, we've got to sweep all that out. And Donald Trump, He's going to issue an executive order. I read a report where he's going to issue an executive order, and the 51 intelligence leaders who in 2020 signed that letter saying that the Hunter Biden laptop that we know is true and valid now was evidence that it was Russian disinformation. He's taken away their security clearances. And I think that's only a start. I mean, you have people like John Brennan, the CIA, you have others who basically lied to the American people to help Joe Biden win the election. And, that cost us the election. Back in 2020 on election day, we did a poll. 36% of the Biden voters were not aware of the Hunter Biden laptop issue. And if they had been, enough votes would have switched that Trump would have won. And the reason they didn't know was because they censored the New York Post. They censored any media outlet, Facebook, Twitter at the time. They censored any discussion of that fact. And that was a scary moment in American history. And that cost us the election, more so than anything else. I mean, more so than any other thing that they did.
Yeah, I mean, you can go down the list, but it was also the changing of voting laws in states like Pennsylvania, which we didn't see happen this time around. Right. But I think their reign is over. Their reign of terror is over. But for these pardons, it's just mind-blowing to me. Mark Milley. If Mark Milley did nothing wrong, he shouldn't need a pardon. And what people don't know is a lot of people don't know, you have to accept the pardon. You don't just get a pardon and it goes on the wayside. You have to accept this pardon. So to see Liz Cheney, Dr. Anthony Fauci, it's so sickening to me that this man, what he did to this country, John, what he did to the American people for a year and a half, 2 years, with his 6-foot rule, with the mask rule, what he did to kids, John, who are never going to develop normally in social settings because of taking them out of schools, what he did to businesses that had to close based on no science. I mean, how do you ever recover from this? And how do you look at the American people in the eye, John, and say, it's okay what you did. Let bygones be bygones. You may be a criminal. You were maybe going to be investigated, but go ahead, be free.
I mean, Joe Biden tried to run the country like he ran Delaware, like a mafia don. Yeah, with that kind of corruption. And the Biden crime family tried to extend over America, and the American people revolted in spite of the suppression. They beat them in spite of the media acquiescence that they said they knew he was a failing president. And the mainstream media's lost all credibility, which is why podcasts like yours and others are doing very well, because people want the truth and they know the truth. Yeah. And something you mentioned earlier was also a point about the Democratic Party. They're in shambles. 2 years ago, really 3 to 2 years ago, Dick Morris, who was the person who introduced me for Donald Trump in 2011 when he first thought of running against Barack Obama, and we put together a campaign plan for him, spent a month, and he decided to pass on that election, but he saved it for 2015. 3 years ago, we had a plan to broaden his coalition so that we could create a majority party, and it's still in progress. All we did was rent these voters in the last election, but we have a very solid base. Trump's base is solid with him. But we did polls where we looked at African-American voters, Hispanic voters, suburban women, and younger voters. And Trump made progress in all those groups. I mean, he won 21% of the African-American vote. He won 46% of the Hispanic vote, historic number, better than any Republican ever before. He won increased shares. He won the suburbs. He won increased shares of suburban women. And he won a greater share of younger voters who were sick of the lockdowns and the lack of freedom that happened during COVID, and the lack of economic opportunities that they were facing in terms of getting better paying jobs, inflation undercutting them, in terms of their prospects for even trying to buy a car or a home. Right. So Trump worked on that, and the voters said they're going to give him a chance to do that. And winning the campaign may have been tough, but dealing with the government of Washington, it's going to be even more of a challenge. He's got 4 years to do it, but you really have to have a very successful first few months.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that relies on the Speaker of the House. I want to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're continuing with John McLaughlin, Republican strategist and brilliant pollster. I want to take up some of these executive orders. I want to take up Mike Johnson in the role, like I said, that he's going to play with President Trump's agenda. And then I want to go a little bit further into this mandate that the American people sent President Trump back to Washington, D.C. on. We're coming right back with John McLaughlin. Stay with us.
Just like all of you, I had problems sleeping. I had tried every pillow out there and nothing worked. I'd flip-flop all night, use my arm for support, and fall asleep, or I'd wake up with a sore neck or maybe a headache. Well, quality sleep comes from keeping your neck straight at night. You have to fill in that space between your head and your bed. That's why I invented MyPillow. MyPillow's patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs, and it doesn't matter if you sleep on your back, stomach, side, or any combination of all three.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night, and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get Classic King MyPillows for only $19.98. Queen size just $18.98. Standard Classic MyPillows only $14.98. That's right, only $14.98. Plus all orders $75 or more ship absolutely free.
Folks, we're back. We're talking with brilliant pollster and GOP strategist John McLaughlin, a man who was guiding President Trump along the way from 2016, before 2016, all the way now through till 2024. John's job is complete. He gave President Trump great information. It got him over the finish line, and here he is back in the White House. John, I want to turn to something before we get to these pardons and some of these executive orders that President Trump is issuing. Last night, I was watching CNN. Can't watch Fox News. I can't listen to it because it's all like the same stuff spewed over. I like to hear what the Democrats are saying, not that they're intellectually smart or anything like that, but I like to hear where their mind is and what they're thinking about. And I'm listening to this anchor. I've never even heard of her before, but she's anchoring a show, and she's saying the voters don't want these deportations overwhelmingly. They don't want President Trump to pardon the January 6ers. And I'm sitting there, and she's going through this list of things that the American people don't want. And I'm saying to myself, every poll I've seen, Americans are in favor of mass deportations. They were even in favor of workplace raids. They're in favor of getting rid of this DEI stuff. They were in favor of January 6 pardons. And pretty much what this woman was saying on CNN, that the American people, 77 million of them didn't send. There wasn't a mandate, John. The most votes for Republican ever in history wasn't a mandate. And that Donald Trump needs to now learn to figure out how to work with the Democrats. What's wrong with these people? What they did to us for the last 4 years, they want us now to go work with the Democrats?
Right. That's inside the Potomac, inside the Beltway Potomac kind of logic, where they want to see how stupid you are. and by the way, I used to have a great friend, Pat Caddell, who polled for Jimmy Carter, but then he also helped President Trump. He was a Trump person. And he used to say that the Democrats are the crooked party and the Republicans are the stupid party. Yeah. And we now have to show that we're not stupid. And I will tell you on your points about deportation, that December survey that we took, we released, it's on our website, McLaughlinonline.com. When we asked the question about, are you in favor, do you support or oppose deporting criminal illegal aliens? And of course, Americans support that 86-8, 69% strongly support. We asked them, in general, just deporting illegal immigrants, and 66 to 27%, they support that. 43% strongly support. I tell you, the difference is a lot of these polls, and you're seeing the media polls, if you call them illegal immigrants or not. A lot of the media polls don't call them illegal because they don't think it's a crime. Like Joe Biden didn't think it was a crime to just come in the country, whether you're from China or Africa or wherever. Right. Yeah, and that's why part of the reason that Trump won the Hispanic vote so soundly was Puerto Ricans in the United States are citizens, and they're treated like second-class citizens. And other Hispanic voters, because they're voters, they came here legally, became citizens, went through a process, took them years of time and hard work, right. And they resent somebody who just walks over the border and then can come take their jobs, get taxpayer-funded benefits for free luxury hotels in Manhattan, money for food, money for free health care, cell phones. I mean, you talk about resentment. I mean, it's very, very, plus a lot of them are criminal illegal aliens, and they've come in with gangs, and they've come in where most of the crimes in Manhattan are committed by illegal aliens now, and they beat up our cops. They've killed Americans across the country. You're not safe in suburbs or rural areas.
Right.
So they brought in fentanyl. I mean, the China's still sending in fentanyl. Donald Trump has to end that. So as far as the near future goes, there's a lot of executive orders that are going to be placed today, and most Americans will be very, very happy that these executive orders are in place. And today we start securing the border, making the country safe again, and hopefully most Americans recognize how important that is. And as far as the polls you're talking about, watch the wording of the polls from CNN and other outlets, and if they don't phrase it as illegal immigrants, if there's euphemisms used in the wording of the question, they're trying to sell us something that we don't believe in.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Some of those executive orders that are coming out now that we're finding out, one of them, sticking on the issue of immigration, is President Trump plans to make it illegal for anchor babies, is the term that we often heard them saying. Right. It's the baby of an illegal alien who comes across the border, has a baby, and that baby becomes a citizen by default. I figured he was going to keep his campaign promises, but I didn't think he was going to start doing it this fast and this abrupt. We're now hearing about workplace raids, the possibility of them coming tomorrow and this week and the following week in New York and Chicago. Eric Adams, a last-minute addition to the dais of inaugural guests. President Trump saying he's looking at pardoning him. I don't know if that's exactly a good idea. I think he's a very flawed man, but nonetheless, it's President Trump's decision to make. And if it's going to make, I guess, New York a better place, as New Yorkers, we should be all for it. Any executive orders that particularly stand out to you that say, Donald Trump is keeping his word. Donald Trump is keeping his word on day one, as he promised he would.
I think there's going to be one about barring transgender men from going into girls' locker rooms and playing sports. I think most Americans, particularly sports moms who voted for Donald Trump, will be relieved about that, and as well as the athletes, the women athletes that were trying to save women's sports. But that's one example. But there'll be lots, and I think the country, there's a sense that we can end some of the silliness, stop our own self-inflicted decline, and try to move on. And we've got challenges. If we don't have a growing economy, a lot of the things that we want to do are not going to happen. So we've got to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. In fact, in December, when we took the poll, we asked them if they would want to make the Trump tax cuts permanent, and they 70-17. The voters said yes, they want to make the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent. Also the no tax on tips, they support that 71-21. No tax on Social Security, 82-11. No tax on overtime, 66-25. The Democrats are trying to slow us down in this regard, and hoping we don't get this done, because the midterm elections with thin majorities, yes. If we don't have economic growth, it would be unlikely that we'll be able to hold those majorities. So what we're looking at right now is trying to get those tax cuts passed early, like before Memorial Day, because the Trump tax cuts, when they were first passed in December 2017, didn't help us in 2018 when we lost both houses, because you didn't have economic growth.
I want to turn to Mike Johnson in just a second, but before we move on to Mike Johnson and the important job that he has to do, among some of the executive orders we're expecting is January 6ers. Do you have any polling in your M&A on January 6ers and where the people stand on pardons for these folks? And what do you think President Trump ultimately does with the pardons for these people?
I don't have polling on that. And some of the, like you were talking about, some of the pardons Biden's making, and some of these, I'm not a legal expert, but I will tell you that right now, I mean, from the media reports I've seen and from the comments President Trump has made, there's a lot of people who have been put in jail for, in effect, trespassing. While when we go back to the BLM riots of 2020, you had people committing violence, and Kamala Harris was getting them out of jail with bail, and they were never prosecuted. So they burned down a police precinct in Minneapolis, et cetera. Yeah. I mean, it's just, there was no accountability. However, January 6th happened, and I think a lot of people there were selectively prosecuted to the harshest of the law. And even when they signed plea deals and were convicted, the federal prosecutors would throw terrorism charges against them. And the vast majority of voters right now recognize January 6th as, yes, it was a protest that, Pelosi didn't accept the National Guard. Schumer didn't accept the National Guard. Donald Trump tried to put 10,000 troops and a bigger fence around the place. And, so I think there's a lot of injustice that's about to get corrected. So I'll leave President Trump and his legal experts up to that. And hopefully, if there's, from what the reports I read, if there's innocent people in jails in Washington, they need to be released as soon as possible. Even if they're not innocent and they're guilty of trespassing, they shouldn't be in a federal jail. So,
yeah, I don't think one of my favorite interviews I've seen this past election cycle, I think it was on MSNBC. A lady goes to like a blue collar factory in Michigan and says, "What do you think about January 6th?" And the guy goes, "December 7th? What are you talking about, January 6th?" And then he goes to another guy, "What do you think about January 6th?" He goes, "Yeah, I really don't know much about it. I know there was like a rally or something that day." And I think that set the tone. The truth of the matter is the people who cared about it, like myself, like you, like people who know the victimization and the selective prosecution that was done, we care about it a lot more than the average American who's just trying to make ends meet, who's trying to buy groceries, who's trying to send their kids to college, who doesn't want their 5-10-year-old kid in the bathroom with men, with other boys. That's what I think the voters cared about. And clearly that's what resonated with them. Although President Trump, I have to give him credit, and I often do about this, he didn't shy away from the January 6th issue. On the debate stage in front of a national audience of millions of people, when asked about it, he stood strong and said, "We're going to treat these people right. What was done to them was wrong." He could have completely shied away from it, said, I don't think we should talk about it or whatever. He didn't. So his point was, for the left, the mainstream media right now to be confused about where he stands is mind-boggling to me, because he never wavered. He never said, "We'll take a look at it." He always said these people were treated wrong, and he put it back on Joe Biden. So I think we're going to see, that wrong righted. I want to take one more quick break here, John, and when we come back, I want to take up Mike Johnson and the role that he's going to play and how important it is for a Republican president to have a good Speaker of the House, not like Paul Ryan. We're coming right back with brilliant pollster John McLaughlin. Let's do it.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that we're making it through. My employees and I want to thank you for your continued support by extending our wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows only $14.98. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.98. But it gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows $29.98 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including my standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. Not only that, order $75 or more, ship absolutely free.
From all of us here at MyPillow,
thanks, America!
We're back with John McLaughlin, brilliant pollster and GOP strategist, instrumental figure in the President Trump movement, the MAGA movement. John, Mike Johnson, what people don't realize is how important the role is for the Speaker of the House and how they call the agenda for President Trump. And I assume President Trump and Mike Johnson have already met about how they're going to move forward with his agenda, what they're going to start with, what they're going to end with. And that was a big mistake that happened under Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan, I think, started with healthcare, which was the hardest thing to do. They should have never touched it. They should have let it be, figured it out along the way. They started with healthcare. It held up things for a year and a half. Before you knew it, the term was up. They lost the Congress. They lost the House. And now President Trump's sitting here kind of lame duck. The only thing you do is executive order. Do you think Mike Johnson has learned his lesson over the last year and the mistakes he's made, the mistakes he's continued to make, the mistake he made just a month ago trying to skate through an omnibus bill? Do you think Mike Johnson has finally learned his lesson and has a brain in his head that tells him we need to get this agenda through. This was a mandate by the American people.
I think the speaker's probably very relieved that President Donald Trump is taking office today.
Yeah.
Because when you're speaker, I used to work for Denny Hassert when he was speaker, and I know Newt Gingrich. I delivered a poll to Newt Gingrich when we were in the minority, and I said to him, I've never seen a generic vote where he was the whip at the time, where generic, it was up 7 in 1994. We won a landslide. And that poll, September poll, forecast that majority. So when you're the speaker and there's a Republican president like there was with George W. Bush and Denny Hassert, you really have a team effort where a lot of things have to get done. And after 9/11, fortunately for the country, you had leaders that were working together, and we defied the midterm historical letdown, where in 2002 we actually picked up 2 Senate seats and 8 House seats, and a lot of it was due to the Americans uniting against the war on terrorism. But on the other hand, we had a growing economy, and President Bush took the lead, and Speaker Hassert, basically had a bigger majority, but he was still able to have his members vote in their own interests. Speaker Johnson is fortunate that now you're going to have President Trump setting the agenda, and President Trump will say, I want tax cuts. Because I talked to President Trump in his first term, and I said to him, why did you do healthcare first? And he said, well, Paul Ryan and Senator McConnell told me I needed the savings to get the tax cuts. I'm like, what are you talking about savings from healthcare? Healthcare is like Stalingrad, and savings, they mean healthcare cuts, like cutting Medicare, which people aren't in favor of. And I said, you need economic growth. You got to pass the tax cuts. Fortunately, we had leaders like Larry Kudlow, who'd written the tax cut plan, and others who were willing to help before Larry went into the government. And we got the tax cuts passed. And we had economic growth that helped the country, but it was too late for the midterm elections. Now you've got Senator Thune, you've got Speaker Johnson. President Trump is telling them he needs one big, beautiful bill. He needs the tax cuts. He needs economic growth. He needs to keep his word to the American people. He needs to secure the border. Put them all in the bill. Historically, you can get one reconciliation bill. If Democrats want to oppose a bill that secures the border, provides economic growth, and does many other good things for the country, let them vote against it, and we'll meet them in the midterms. So we will beat them. So Speaker Johnson, he's not alone anymore. He now has a president he can count on who will set the agenda, and his job should be to make sure that slim Republican majority lines up. And just like they did with the Lake and Riley bill, get Democrats to stand up and be on the record, whether they're for or against, these principles that we have of securing the country, securing the border, and growing the economy. And like with the Lake and Riley bill, if you're a Democrat and you're going to vote not to arrest and deport criminal illegal aliens, right, try to run the midterm election on that. So I think that's what you're going to see. I think you're going to see leadership from President Trump. And I think it would behoove the Republicans in the Senate and the House to make sure we get that job done, because that's the path to their reelection, their majorities, as well as good piece of prosperity for the country. That's what it's about.
And I think among some of the things that need to happen is not another dollar for Ukraine. I mean, we got to figure out what's going on over there before we keep writing these checks. And Mike Johnson had said to us when he first came in, we're not going to send a dollar to Ukraine. 2 days later, he was meeting with Zelensky. 2 days after that, he had a $1 billion check. It wasn't $1 billion, but metaphorically speaking, had another check for Zelensky. We've got to get our stuff fixed here at home first, John. We have an economy that's teetering. We have a stock market that's teetering. I mean, there's so much uncertainty in this country right now that it can go either way at any point. And, President Trump sat down with the great Lou Dobbs in January of last year, just about a year to the date almost. And President Trump said to Lou, he said, I don't want to be Herbert Hoover. I don't want to have an economic breakdown. I don't want the economy to crash. If it's going to crash, let it happen now so I can come in and fix it. And the media went crazy. The mainstream media went nuts. President Trump is wishing for an economic breakdown, and he wants the markets to crash under Joe Biden. But these people don't listen. And I think it's part of the reason that Americans are so tired of these Democrats. A new poll out from CNN, no less, John, has the Democrats at the lowest ratings in more than 30 years at 30% approval. Do you think the Democrats are finally going to wake up once and for all? John Fetterman, I never thought he would be like the voice of reason, a man with a stroke, a man who was socialist as can be when he ran, whose wife is a socialist. I never thought I'd see the day that John Fetterman is the voice of reason. Why can't these Democrats learn and wake up and realize that if they did work with the Republicans and they did work on things that matter to the American people, it would benefit them?
Well, first of all, they're wrong on a lot of issues, and they refuse to believe it. Yeah. But the reality is, I think some Democrats will come around, but we have to lead. The challenge is for Republicans, conservatives, Trump supporters. We broaden our coalition. You have RFK, you have Tulsi Gabbard, you have reform, anti-Washington liberals and Democrats coming to our coalition because they didn't trust our government, and they want to talk about freedom. They want to end censorship. They want to have success out there. They want to have, Kennedy wants to make America healthy again. Who could be against that? Sure. But in the meantime, when you look at it, you're right. But when you look at it, when you look at the challenges ahead, your points are exactly right. That we have severe challenges, and a lot of the Democrats are doubling down, like AOC and others. And it would be our mistake to let them, back in power or slow us down. We have to basically say, no, we were elected. We do have a mandate. But what's more important is our policies work. In February of 2021, I met with President Trump. Jason Miller was there, and we were going through a poll, and I said, do you realize 63% of all Republicans want you to run again? And I said to him, when Biden's policies failed, just like Jimmy Carter's policies failed, there was buyer's remorse. They wanted Reagan. When his policies fail, they'll want Donald Trump. There'll be buyer's remorse, and you'll get reelected. And that's what he exactly did. He loves this country. He's the most patriotic person I ever met. And he put us back on the path to success. And we have to now work every day to make sure that success is real.
I got to be honest. There wasn't a doubt in my mind, John, from the second that Donald Trump left the White House on January 20th of 2021 and did that little mini rally at the Air Force Base. There wasn't a doubt in my mind that he was ever running again. And I went on predicted, and I placed a few bets along the way that Donald Trump was going to run again, that Donald Trump was going to be the nominee. And I made a little bit of money on it because that's him. He's not the kind of man who's going to go out on an L. And I don't think it was really a loss in 2020. So a lot of people don't think it was a loss in 2020.
Right. I could be the first pollster that worked for a successful candidate who's gotten elected three times since FDR, right? So
go ahead.
Who won the three presidential elections in a row?
It's truly remarkable, and more votes each time. I mean, it's truly remarkable what this man has managed to do. He's truly something else. Before we wrap up, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us on this monumental day in America. I'm obviously not in D.C. this time. I was there in 2016. That was enough for me. I supported President Trump then. I support him now. But, taking the trip out of there, I'm heading off on vacation today. So
good. Enjoy.
But, seeing everyone's Instagram posts and Twitter messages, it's so cool to me to see how mainstream this has become. Before the show, we were talking about President Trump on stage with the Village People. These guys hated him in 2016. They hated him in 2020. So many people that just dislike Snoop Dogg. I think did a video trying to kill Trump. He's out there performing at the crypto thing. All these rappers, John, all these influencers, these people who came out of the woodwork, some for good reasons, some because they're hucksters and opportunists, a lot of people there. But nonetheless, it's just so cool to me that it's cool to support President Trump. It's cool to support a movement. And it feels like something, John, you're on the ground there, that I've never experienced before. I've never seen before. Sporting events, victory parades to the New York Yankees on the Canyon of Heroes on 6th Avenue in New York City. Nothing seems to feel like it. Even going back to that rally we were at Madison Square Garden, John, the energy, Hulk Hogan coming out on the stage, it was just so cool to see the American people love each other, and enjoy something and unite. 77 million people, John. I can't agree with someone on where to go to dinner, yet you get 77 million people to agree on an agenda and a movement for this country. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think you're exactly right. There are people right now as we speak in 20-degree weather that feels like 10-degree weather, lining the streets of Washington, just watching his motorcade go by from the White House to the Capitol. And there's no outdoor inaugural. A lot of them know they won't get into the Capital One Center, but they've stayed in Washington to celebrate. And they have hope. Now we have to get our policies done, get our policies implemented, so that hope becomes a reality and make things better. And like President Trump said, we can have a golden age of America, and that would be fantastic. But it's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of public support to get us there. But there's hope now. Yeah.
It's time to make America great again. John McLaughlin, we hope you enjoy your day and have a blast out there. Have a drink for me and tell President Trump, hey, and we all miss him. And the great Lou Dobbs is in heaven smiling down.
Yes, he is. Your mentor is very happy with you, John, right now. So that's great.
John, enjoy your day, brother, and have a good one.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us today. And thank you to John McLaughlin for taking the time in his busy day in Washington, D.C. to join us here on the Great America Show on this monumental day in America, the swearing in, the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump and his return to the White House, making history once again, folks. And we hope you're enjoying this day as much as we all are here on the Great America Show. We waited 4 years for this moment to come, and it has finally arrived. So thanks all for being with us today. We really appreciate it. We'll see you back here tomorrow for the Great America Show, where our quest for truth, justice, and the American way continues, folks. Till then, may God bless you, may God bless America, and may God bless the great Lou Dobbs.